They say secrets travel faster than planes, so buckle up, because this is not just a love triangle, it's a collision course at 30,000 feet. If you enjoy jaw-dropping twists, scandal, betrayal, and the kind of drama that makes you gasp out loud, make sure you subscribe so you never miss stories like this, because what you're about to read will leave you breathless. At the airport with Mistress, Billionaire carried her bag, then his wife arrived holding his quadruplets, and that single moment would ignite a scandal so explosive it would ripple through families, boardrooms, and the very fabric of loyalty itself. For Alexander Crane, a self-made billionaire with steel-gray eyes, salt and pepper hair, and the kind of presence that made people turn their heads without knowing why, had always lived his life like a chess game, each move calculated, each risk disguised as strategy. But that morning at the bustling international terminal, under the glaring fluorescent lights and the chaotic hum of boarding calls, he made the one mistake his billions couldn't bury. He reached down with his perfectly manicured hands and carried the leather handbag of Isabella Moretti, the stunning Italian art dealer who had been his mistress for nearly a year, a woman of devastating beauty with dark curls tumbling like rivers of ink down her back and eyes that promised secrets worth burning for. And the moment he did, flashes went off. Not just from cameras but from fate itself, for out of nowhere, a gasp echoed through the terminal and there stood his wife, Evelyn Crane, resplendent even in her travel-worn clothes, her once delicate figure now fuller, her face glowing with maternal strength, but her arms occupied with a sight that froze Alexander's blood. The 4 tiny babies cradled against her chest and shoulders, quadruplets, his children, his legacy, his responsibility made flesh. And the silence that followed seemed louder than the boarding announcements, the rolling suitcases, or the murmured conversations around them, because in that second every passenger, every assistant, every businessman and flight attendant knew they were witnessing the unmasking of a man who had thought himself untouchable. Alexander's mind raced. Isabella's lips curled in a smirk that didn't reach her eyes, Evelyn's trembling hands tightened around the infants, and suddenly, all the empires he had built, all the skyscrapers with his name carved into the steel, seemed like sandcastles about to be swallowed by a tide of truth. Yet the story didn't end at confrontation. No, it only began there. Because what nobody realized was that the quadruplets weren't merely infants. They were the result of a medical miracle, a secret Evelyn had guarded fiercely after years of infertility treatments, a struggle Alexander had abandoned emotionally long before his affair, and now, as he stuttered between explanations and lies, the real twist began. Evelyn hadn't come to beg or to accuse, she had come to end it all, armed not just with children but with documents, contracts, and a revelation that would strip him bare before the world. But Isabella, cunning and ambitious, wasn't about to fade quietly into scandal. She whispered venom into Alexander's ear that if he dared walk away from her, the secret investments she had hidden in his name, the offshore accounts, the art smuggling ring she had looped him into unknowingly, would surface, and not only would he lose his fortune, he would face prison. Alexander, suddenly trapped between 2 women, one with his future in her arms and the other with his downfall in her grip, tried to calculate an exit, but fate twisted the knife. Because Evelyn wasn't alone, stepping out from behind her were reporters she had tipped off, lawyers she had summoned, and, worst of all, Alexander's own mother, a woman he revered and feared, who had come to stand beside Evelyn, her voice shaking as she declared that no amount of money would erase the shame he had brought on their name. The crowd swelled, phones raised, whispers spreading like wildfire, and Alexander, usually the composed master of every deal, found his throat dry, his palms sweating, his mind fracturing under the weight of betrayal, desire, fear, and regret. And then, screams pierced the air, not from Evelyn, not from Isabella, but from a stranger running toward them, shouting Alexander's name. A man claiming to be his half-brother, long thought dead, holding papers that proved Alexander wasn't even the rightful heir to the Crane fortune, but rather the illegitimate son of a servant, and that the empire he thought was his birthright had been built on lies. Gasps ricocheted through the terminal like gunfire, security swarmed, babies cried, Isabella fainted, Evelyn's tears fell but her stance remained iron, and Alexander felt the walls of his empire collapse, each revelation a wrecking ball. Yet deep inside, a darker twist brewed, for Alexander knew the half-brother's claim wasn't entirely false. He had buried that secret long ago, bought silence with money, destroyed evidence with fire, and now the ghosts had come marching out of the smoke. But just when it seemed he would crumble entirely, a chilling smile curved across Evelyn's lips, and she whispered so only he could hear. "This isn't about exposing you, Alexander, it's about freeing myself," and she handed him divorce papers, custody agreements, and a press statement already drafted, leaving him stunned, because the woman he had dismissed as weak, as desperate for motherhood, had orchestrated the greatest checkmate of all, and as security tried to usher them into private lounges, Isabella's mask shattered and she screamed that she was pregnant, that she carried Alexander's child, and suddenly the cameras flashed brighter, capturing a man torn between two mothers, 5 children, and a world ready to devour him alive. But the true twist came months later, when Alexander, stripped of his fortune and abandoned by the board of his company, discovered that Isabella's pregnancy was a lie, a ploy to anchor him, while Evelyn, now wealthier than ever with her settlement and a media empire born from her scandal, revealed that the quadruplets weren't conceived by Alexander at all, but through a donor, a secret she had held to guarantee her independence. And as Alexander collapsed under the weight of the final betrayal, the world cheered Evelyn as a heroine of resilience, a mother who rose from ashes, while Isabella vanished into exile, hunted for fraud, and Alexander, once a billionaire with the world at his feet, stood at the edge of obscurity, remembering the moment at the airport when he bent down to carry a bag, unaware he was lifting the burden that would break him forever.